Hello and welcome to Great Literature with Grace. Today I'm going to be reading for you The Prisoner of Chillon by Lord Bryon. A little backstory on this poem. It is part of the collection of romantic poetry. Lord Bryon was kind of like the scandalous celebrity of his day. He had numerous love affairs that got him kicked out of England, and so he wandered around Europe and wrote poetry, and he came across this castle. It is the Chateau du Chillon in Switzerland, and he found that there had been a gentleman by the name of Francois de Bonneval who had been imprisoned there for 7 years, chained to a pillar for his defense of Geneva, and also a religious war between the Catholics and the Protestants. So without further ado, I'm going to do an excerpt from the ballad, which is a very long ballad, so I'm only going to do half of it, of The Prisoner of Chillon. My hair is grey, but not with years, nor it grew white in a single night, as men's have grown from sudden fears. My limbs are bowed, though not with toil, but rusted in a vile repose. For they have been a dungeon's spoil, and mine have been the fate of those to whom goodly earth and air are barred and banned, forbidden fare. But this was for my father's faith. I suffered chains and courted death, that my father perished at the stake. For tenants he would not forsake, and for the same his lineal race in darkness found a dwelling place. We were 7 who are now 1, 6 in youth, 1 in age, finished as they had begun. Proud of persecution's rage, 1 in fire, 2 in field, the belief with blood has sealed, dying as their father died for the God their foe denied. 3 were in a dungeon cast, of whom this wreck is left the last. There are 7 pillars of Gothic mould in Chillon's dungeons deep and old. There are 7 pillars massy and grey, dim with a dull and prisoned ray, a sunbeam which has lost its way. And through the clevice and the cleft, a thick wall is fallen and left, creeping over the floor so damp, like a marsh's meteor lamp. And in each pillar there is a ring, in each ring there is a chain, that iron is a clankering thing. For within these limbs its teeth remain, with marks that will not wear away, till I have done with this new day, which is now painful to my eyes, which hath not seen the sun for rise. For years, I cannot count them over, I lost their long and heavy score, when my last brother drooped and died, as I lay living by his side. They chained us each to column stone, and we were 3 at each alone. We could not move a single pace, we could not see each other's face, but in the pale and livid light that made us strangers in our sight, thus together yet apart, fettered in hand but joined by heart. 'Twas still some solace in the dearth of the pure elements of the earth, to hearken to each other's speech, and each turn comforter to each, with some new hope or legend old, or song heroically fold. But even these at length grew cold. Our voices took a dreary tone, an echo of the dungeon stone, a grating sound not full and free as they of yore were wont to be. It might be fancy, but to me they never sounded like our own. I was the eldest of the 3, and to uphold and cheer the rest I ought to do, did my best, and each did well in his degree. The youngest, whom my father loved, because our mother's brow was given to him, with eyes as blue as heaven, For him my soul was sorely moved, as truly might be distressed to see such a bird in such a nest. For he was as beautiful as the day, when day was beautiful to me, as to young eagles being free. A polar day which will not see the sunset till its summer's gone, a sleepless summer of long light, the snow cloud offspring of the sun. And thus he was as pure and bright, and his natural spirit gay, with tears not for but others' ills, and then they flowed like mountain rills, unless he could assuage the woe, of which he abhorred to view below. The other was as pure of mind, but formed to combat with his kind, strong in his frame and of a mood against the world in war had stood, and perished in the foremost rank with joy, but not in chains to pine. His spirit withered with its clank, I saw it silently decline, and so perchance in sooth did mine. But I forced it on to cheer the relics of a home so dear. He was the hunter of the hills, had followed there deer and wolf. To him the dungeon was a gulf that fettered feet the worst of ills. Lake Leman lies by Chillon's walls, 1,000 feet in depth below its massy waters meet and flow. And thus much fathom line was sent from Chillon's snow-white battlements, which round about the wave enthralls, a double dungeon, wall and wave, hath made like a living grave. Below the surface of the lake, the dark vault wherein we lay, we heard it ripple night and day. Sounding over our heads it knocked, and I felt the winter spray wash over the bars when the winds were high, and wanton in the happy sky. And then the very rock hath rocked, and I have felt it shaked unshocked, because I could have smiled to see the death that would have set me free. I said my nearer brother pined, I said his mighty heart declined. He loathed and put away his food. 'Twas not, 'twas coarse and rude. For we were used to hunters' fare, and for the like we had little care. The milk drawn from the mountain goat was changed for water from the moat. Our bread was such that his captive's tears had moistened many 1,000 years, since men first pent his fellow men like brutes within an iron den. But what were these to us or him? These wasted neither heart nor limb. My brother's soul was of the mold in which a palace had grown cold, had his free breathing been denied. But why delay the truth? He died. I saw, and I could not hold his head, nor reach his dying hand, nor dead, though hard I strove, but strove in vain, to rend and gnash my bonds in twain. He died, and they unlocked his chain, and scooped for him a shallow grave, even from the cold earth in our cave. I begged them as a boon to lay his corpse in the dust, whereupon the day might shine. 'Twas a foolish thought, but then within my brain it wrought, that even in death his freeborn breast in such a dungeon could not rest. I might have spared my idle prayer. They coldly left and laid him there. The flat and turfless earth above, the being we so much did love, his empty chain above it lent, such murderers fitting monument. But he, the favorite and the flower, most cherished since his natal hour, his mother image in fair face, the infant love of all his race, his martyred father's dearest thought, my latest care, for whom I sought to hoard my life, that he might be less wretched now and one day free. He too, who had yet held untired a spirit natural or inspired. He too was struck, and day by day was withered on his stalk away. O God, it is a fearful thing to see a human soul take wing, in any shape, in any mood. I've seen it rushing forth in blood. I've seen it on the breaking ocean strive with a swollen, convulsive motion. I've seen the sick and ghastly bed of sin delirious with its dread. But these were horrors, this was woe, unmixed with church, but sure and slow. He faded, and so calm and meek, so softly worn, so sweetly meek, so tearless yet so tender kind, and grief for all those he had left behind. With all the wild cheek whose bloom was as a mockery of the tomb, whose tint as gently sunk away as a departing rainbow's ray, an eye of most transparent light that almost made the dungeon bright. And not a word of murmur, not a groan over his untimely lot. A little talk of better days, a little hope my own to raise. For I was sunk in silence, lost in this last loss of all the most. And then the sighs he would suppress, of fainting nature's feebleness, more slowly drawn, grew less and less. I listened, but I could not hear. I called, for I was wild with fear. I knew 'twas hopeless, but my dread would not be thus admonished. I called, and thought I heard a sound. I broke my chain with one strong bound, and rushed to him. I found him not. I only stirred in this black spot. I only lived. I only drew the accursed breath of dungeon dew. The last, the soul, the dearest link between me and the eternal brink, which bound me to my fainting race, was broken in this fatal place. One on earth and one beneath, my brothers both had ceased to breathe. I took my hand, which lay so still. Alas, mine own was full of chill. I had not strength to stir or strive, but felt that I was still alive. A frantic feeling when we know that what we love shall never be so. I know not why I could not die. I had no earthly hope but faith, and that forbade a selfish death. What befell me next, then and there, I did not know. I never knew. First came the loss of light and air, and then of darkness too. I had no thought, no feeling, none. Amongst the stones I stood a stone, and was scarce conscious of what I wist, as the scrubless scrags within the mist, for all was blank and bleak and grey. It was not night, it was not day, it was not even dungeon light, so hateful to my heavy sight, but vacancy absorbing space and fixedness without a place. There were no stars, no earth, no time, no check, no change, no good, no crime, but silence, and in a stirless breath, which was neither life nor death, a sea of stagnant idleness, blind, boundless, mute, and motionless.